Hello everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Daniel. I'm called Mr. Dooku on most socials. Today I want to talk about something that I'm pretty open about on my socials, on TikTok and on Instagram, and that's anxiety. And I know a lot of people go through anxiety, and for some reason it's not something that they share. So I wanted to come on today, be super vulnerable, and talk about how I've dealt with anxiety and what I've done to sort of cope with that or battle anxiety. My first experience with extreme anxiety was when I was working for a development company, and every single morning I'd have extreme anxiety before I go to work. And I think it was because that I tend to set very high standards for myself. And so when I'm not meeting those standards, it automatically feels like I'm failing. And that's how I felt at that job. I'll go in there, and then every morning I'd feel like I'd have to go in there and show up, and I always felt like I was doing something wrong, even though I was probably doing well. I always felt like I was not doing what I was supposed to do. I ended up leaving that job. That was my way of battling it. 2022, actually, I went through a serious wave of anxiety, and I'm going to further discuss this in another video, but I want to talk about the exact things I did, because that sort of anxiety was a lot. That it came at the point where I was doing really well on socials, especially TikTok. I was flying on TikTok, and one thing about doing well with content creation is, as you get more eyes on your content, and then all of a sudden you get more opinions on your content, right? Because as soon as you put your content out, there are a lot more opinions that people start giving, whether you like it or not. That's just how it works. God being so good, the kind of content I put out is not really controversial, right? It's sort of on the positive side. I think I like to call it development TikTok. It came at that time where I started having anxiety because I was afraid that I'll post something that would automatically cause a mass outrage, and everything will be over. And I think this also comes from imposter syndrome and just being scared, right? It really took a toll on me mentally. And I remember I used to talk to my mom about it and say, hey mom, listen, I'm going through this serious amount of anxiety. My mom will call me and pray with me. And there were a few things that I started to pick up in terms of habits that really changed my mentality on dealing with anxiety. Again, this is how I dealt with it. I'm not a doctor, and so I won't be able to tell you the exact things that you need to do. But this is what I did. Now, the first thing I did was go before God. That was the first thing, is I can't do this alone, God. I need your help. And so every morning I'd pray, I'd read my Bible, I'm building a relationship with Jesus, building a relationship with God, because I want to know how I can deal with anxiety. The Bible talks about anxiety and, do not be anxious. Actually, let me find the verse. In Philippians chapter 4, verse 6, it says, do not be anxious about anything, but in every situation, by prayer and petition, with thanksgiving, present your request to God. I was brought up in the Bible. I was brought up as a Christian, so that's the first thing that came in mind is I got to go to God and I got to pray. I know I'm dealing with anything, but I can't do this alone. I can't look into man-made sort of systems alone to help me. I need to go to God first and let God deal with it. Prayed, I kept on praying, and slowly I figured out that I was starting to develop habits to deal with anxiety. Now, how God answers your prayers is not you're just sleeping and all of a sudden anxiety goes away. God is very practical. So I think what God did was he started introducing me to things that will lead me away from anxiety and habits that I could develop to get me away from anxiety. And so one thing I started to do is I started to read a lot. Now, this is after I've prayed, and again, I'm still praying. I'm still developing a relationship with God. I'm still doing that. What reading does is it blocks out everything that's going on. And the only thing that your whole entire body is focusing on are the words in the book. You don't have any thoughts of anything. The only thing you're thinking about right now is your book. And then you keep doing it. It helps you block out every single thing that's going on, and you're just focusing on a book. And then it started going from one book a month to one book a week. And I started being really consistent with it. Probably just got mail. Give me 1 second. That's just Joe. Joe left his keys home. Where was I? I was talking about something. Reading. So now I'm still reading a lot, just trying to not necessarily get rid of my problems, but if I'm not reading, I end up going on social media or watching TV or doing something that kind of takes my anxiety levels up. The second thing that I really focused on was journaling. And up till now, I still feel like I'm not that great with journaling. It's a habit that you have to build. It's basically just pouring every single thing that I had in my mind. It's a way of sort of venting to a book. Some people use notes. You know, I like to write because I feel like the pattern of my hand sort of gives me a better understanding of where I am as compared to typing, if you understand what I'm saying. And as a matter of fact, I've actually moved from my iPad to an actual notebook with a pen, because I'm also trying to get, slow down my screen time. So I use a book and a pen instead. Truthfully, I still do it. It's just not as consistent back then, because back then I just felt like I needed to pour every single thought that I had onto a piece of paper. I took a lot of breaks from social media. Not necessarily like a month break where I don't go on it. I was a content creator back then. I still am, but I wasn't paying much attention to some metrics of social media. I remember I wouldn't read comments. Like if I'm scrolling on social media, I wouldn't open the comments to read it, because the comments is where you start finding that toxicity, like where people start, body shaming, all that stuff. So I remember I wouldn't read it, because that was my way of sort of bypassing the toxic side of social media, even though I was working in it. I remember I would also not go on it in the morning. I'll try to take Sundays off, Mondays off, stuff like that. And that really helped me, because social media, especially at a high level that I am in, I don't mean that to be braggy, but I've been able to build a certain audience, which is about 700 something thousand with between TikTok and Instagram. When you get to that level, there's so many eyes on you, and it could go both ways. If you put out controversial content, good luck to you. If you put out sort of the content that I do, you're gonna have people that agree with you, and you're gonna have people that hate what you do, and they're gonna come for you. I remember when I started, I was doing skincare stuff and hygiene stuff, and I had a lot of guys come into my comments telling me that I was gay, I was feminine. Those kind of things affect you, because all of a sudden you're having opinions from people that you didn't really need opinions from. Take breaks from social media, and that's where it took me to reading. Like I said in the beginning, reading also helped a lot. And so when I'm not using social media on my phone, I'm either working on my business or, I'll be reading. One thing that also helped me is I'll watch a funny movie before I go to bed every single day. Netflix, I'll put on a funny movie, and then I'll laugh, and then I go to bed. That was my way of always getting myself in a good mood before sleeping. It's unconventional. Like I said, this is something that I did, but it really helped me. And anxiety is something that we don't really talk about, but there's just little things that we can change about ourselves that can sort of take that away from us. Another thing that I used to do a lot is I just went outside. My way of coping was going to the gym. I'll take a walk. Luckily for me, there was a basketball court next to me. I'd go shoot. But the gym really helped. And I'll go out there, just go lift, listen to music, go play basketball alone, just be outside in the sun. It really helped me. There's a book that I read called Atomic Habits, which I recommend you read. It's up here. It talks about those where when your body is sort of familiar with the environment, it starts falling into those same habits. And so when you start changing things, it works out a lot for you. I realized that going out did that for me, because I wasn't in that same confined space where, when I was anxious, I'll just detach from every single thing. You know what I mean? And going out makes you deal with it in a different way. And so thinking of it now, my message to you is anxiety is something that you should speak out about, because sometimes you don't even realize it. Sometimes you have a lot of anxiety and you wouldn't even realize that you have anxiety. One thing about me is, I like to set high standards for myself, and that might be a toxic trait for me. And then when I don't meet those standards, it kind of makes me feel like I have failed, and that causes anxiety. And it's not it's not a good thing in my opinion, and it's something I'm still working on. It's hard for me to see that I've done something right or what I did deserves applause or praise, because I always feel like I could have done better. And that causes anxiety. And so, some of the things I'm also trying to do is just forgive myself, and not be too hard on myself. Like, I remember when I started the watch company and people would tell me the watches were nice, I would say, oh, they're okay. I mean, I could have done better. And then all of a sudden, I'm creating this idea in my head that, like, you're not enough. Whatever you do is not enough. You have to always do it. And it's not a good habit, especially if I'm feeding it to myself. It's not a good habit, right? And so I'm trying as much as possible to do that, to be forgiving on myself, to go easy on myself, and just to remember that I'm here to do my best. I'm not here to be perfect. I don't have any notes down, nothing at all. I just spoke. So this is really raw. I'm going to be honest with you. I have nothing planned. I have nothing written. And so my hope is that you can probably pick something from this video and say, hey, one thing that Daniel did was he prayed a lot. And, I want to do that too. I think that's very important. That's the first thing you should do. Because through prayer is how I was able to come across all these other steps. Again, like I said, God doesn't just say, oh, anxiety, gone. He has to create these habits for you that will lead you to not have anxiety. He doesn't just say, sickness, gone. He can do that. Don't get me wrong. God can do that. I have knee pain, for instance, right? And I say, God, take this knee pain away in Jesus' name. God can just take the pain away. That's for sure. But God wants me to understand how it feels to take the pain away. So I have to get in the gym and do strengthening exercises, because he's trying to build habits for me so I can work on the knee. That's how it works. So through prayer is when God was saying, go through the verses and then you learn more about anxiety. You pray to God, you make your request to God, and out of nowhere, you start getting interested in reading books and trying to fill up your time with something that's not social media. That's God leading or creating habits in your life. That's how it works. That's how it worked for me. So I suggest you do it. I suggest you pray. Trust me, reading works so well. Reading is so good that it blocks every single thing out, and you're just you, the book, and wherever you are. Then go outside. Go play, man. Go touch some grass. Just go walk. It's getting nice out too, which is a good thing. Just go do something. If you want to try journaling out too, you can start with your phone if you're a phone person, or you can start with an iPad. I always say start with a book. Nothing would ever beat an old-fashioned book and pen or pencil. The iPads, the phones can try to replace it. I'm telling you, nothing would ever beat a book and a book and a pen. So I'd suggest doing that and just try it out. I'd also suggest therapy. I haven't been in therapy yet, thinking about it, but I haven't been into therapy yet, so I want to be able to give you my honest opinion. Again, like I said, this was a very raw video, and I really appreciate you for watching. I will upload this probably soon, and I want to do a lot more talking on this channel. Some of them should be a lot more planned. This one wasn't, because I just wanted to talk and have a sit down. But I really appreciate you for watching. Like I always say, if you like it, I really appreciate you. If you don't, it is what it is. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.